Today, wow, coming up in just a minute. Hello. Oh, it finished. Oh, blimey. Hold on. Oh, let's get some music. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah.
I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing.
Oh, well, it was all right. Hold on. Oh, okay, he moans a bit, this bloke, but he's all right. Oh dear.
I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town.
Oh.
I'm searching for the lost.
That's Bill.
But you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air, like a blazing flare. So stare, 'cause the flames will burn us up.
Right. Yeah, I don't really have to point out that this is copyright free because we're not going out on Facebook anyway. They kicked me off.
Kiss your head when you cry for me. Hold your hand while the day was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. You meant the world to me.
Hold on.
It's been said that those
Hark
that
at
have
that.
the eyes
That's
to see
Revolution
and the
Radio.
ears
We
to
actually
hear
are going to go out
will
on
play
time
a
on
paramount
Revolution Radio
role
today.
in
That's the
furthering
first
of
time.
humanity.
The atmosphere charting the stratosphere. I pray for you and catching you and hopes you chase away my fears. I'm on my own, I made it so. Now I'm chasing nightmares for you.
Source of information and knowledge in abundance at revolution.radio, freedomslips.com.
Coming up in just a few secs, people.
Supported radio station on the globe. Stand upon the right side of history.
Do-do-do-do-do. They can't hear me on Revolution Radio. I'm muted. Okay, coming up, and last show, Bill Etheridge is here. I think Piers is coming on. Yeah,
this radio
Mr. J in Canada.
And its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of
anybody, including me.
Its staff or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Yeah, good idea. Oh, for goodness sake. Come on. Doo-be-doo-doo. Hey folks. Oh, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good people. This is Daily Chaos. Except it's not daily. The chaos is. Yeah. The show isn't. Definitely isn't. Last show. Yeah. At least in this long show format. So, yeah. Taking a break. But hey, Revolution Radio. God bless you. WakeUpUK.net. God bless you. Got Bill Etheridge here. We're going to be talking about ENDGAME. What's this deal with the oil? Yeah, war, propaganda, the Great Reset. Yeah. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. You know, I like this. I really like this intro. This music. It's awesome, man. Who is it? It's Silent Partner. Thank you, Silent Partner. Copyright free. Yeah. And while I'm about it, Strut Funk is the out thing for this show. That's Stuart Bogey. Thank you. Great piece of music. I know people don't like my music that I use on this show. It's all copyright free, but I gotta say I like it. That is how sad I am. And talking of sad, we've got Bill Etheridge here. Bill, good afternoon, sir. Good morning.
Well, thank you. What an introduction, talking of sad. Yeah. I like the music as well, Ollie. I've always liked the music.
Oh, good man, Bill. Blimey. Yeah. The thing is, it's really difficult to compete with the propagandist media that is selling all this bullshit.
Yeah, it is. And when there's controlled opposition media out there that takes the vast share of the people who should be listening and watching you, and they go on to, I'll say, GB News, and all you've got to do is have a look at the Twitter streams of the people involved in it, and it's one big party. It's people who, over the years, have been fellow travellers involved in Brexit-type organisations and UKIP, but who were there for the party, and the party rolls on for them. They've never done any real tough campaign work out of the streets, had to face up to the hope not hate mob, never had to do any of that. In fact, many of the ones who I see on there were the ones we used to laugh about back in the day and think, well, crikey, I wonder what possible role they've got in any of this. And now they are seen as being the standard bearers for liberty, and it's laughable, Ollie, to be perfectly honest. When people watch that, and then the only other things they see is the normal mainstream media, which is, as we know, full of propaganda, it does make you wonder how anyone's ever going to embrace or understand the truth, because they're not allowing themselves to hear it.
We don't even have a free press anymore, do we? I mean, the government sorts of that, or Ofcom, the government, the establishment sorts of that with RT.
No, there's no free press.
And also, whenever they have a big thing that they're selling, like you've got to get your umpteenth jab or something, they get all the papers. You look at the newsstand at the first thing in the morning, and they've all got the same picture. They've all got the same headline, which is get your jab, do as you're told.
Of course, and
it's unbelievable.
Voice is allowed, but people keep on swallowing it. This is the issue. I mean,
that's the issue.
Yeah, the Pfizer results came out recently, and apart from a couple of small articles on it, they've not really been covered. Over 100,000 people with adverse effects before even FDA approval, and no one wants to talk about that. All they want to talk about is, carry on doing as you're told. People get what they deserve, Ollie, and I'm afraid what they deserve at the moment is the kind of totalitarianism that's coming.
Oh man, I'll tell you, never before was the phrase "ignorance is bliss" so pertinent. The cognitive dissonance is through the roof. But something else that came out in this lots of things actually, but one of the things was that government report that said I think 9 in 10 deaths had been jabbed. 9 in 10 COVID deaths had been jabbed. That's the UK government.
Yeah, well, that's
just mad. Double jabbed, actually. Double jabbed.
Yeah, they'll say it's because there's so many people being jabbed, the proportions and all the rest of it. But if this thing's supposed to keep you safe, why are there deaths? It's nonsense. And anyone who actually thinks about these things, or even reads more than one side of the story, knows that it's nonsense. But the thing is, and what's really clever, is that once people have had this stuff jabbed into them, they're kind of invested in the project. Once you've gone down that route and you've had the jab, you really don't want to then start believing that it's something that's no good for you. It's a bit late in the day then. So you're trying to persuade your own subconscious that actually you're not made a stupid mistake. And that's clever, if you think about it. The powers that be have made people want to invest in their project, because as soon as you've got this stuff in your system, the thought that it could be bad for you is too awful to consider.
If Piers was here in the first half instead of the second, he'll be here in the second, he would now be saying this is a pact with the devil, and it really is. There are people that say that this thing actually affects your soul. I find it difficult to understand, but I suppose on a psychological level, yeah. And you've pretty much summed it up in layman's terms, without having to get into the esoteric.
Yeah, I've studied parapsychology as well as one or two other things. I'm not of the view of whether or not there's a devil or a god personally, but I do think that what we have is a pact with our human equivalent of the devil, which is the state. And it's the truth, Ollie. We can win the argument 100% now, and it wouldn't matter, because people cannot allow themselves to believe us. That's the beauty, the sort of evil beauty of what's been done. I have this conversation with a lot of friends and family who've been jabbed, and you can see the flickers in their eye. You can see that they can actually see the sense of what's going on, but they can't. And I can understand this. I'm not having to go at people who've been jabbed. I can understand it. Once you've made that decision, once you've got this stuff in your veins, are you really going to be able to then think to yourself, oh my God, what have I done? Because there's no way back. You can't have it extracted. It's there. So you have to hope with all your heart and soul that it's okay.
So you think that that's actually somehow made people more compliant?
It's got to, hasn't it? One of the reasons it's easy for me, who came into this a couple of years ago, absolutely with no anti-vax or anti-vaccine or anti-jab sentiment of any sort, who actually a couple of years ago would have gone for a jab, and right up until when this started happening, coming out, was pretty open-minded about it.
Yeah.
But I can change my view, as I have done, and speak freely about it and have no sort of qualms, because I didn't get it. So I don't have a vested interest in it being right, do I? In fact, if anything, my vested interest is perhaps in being proven to have been right not to have had it. But, we have to understand that people's subconscious minds, once they're into a project, that's what they've done. Millions of people bought into a project, into this serum. And the consequences of a mass awakening of people realising what had happened and that maybe it was bad for them, it's just inconceivable. And people's minds won't allow that to happen. That's the reality. Without going too deep into the psychology, people will not allow themselves to understand that at best this thing is of minimal defence and has got some pretty awful side effects for some very unfortunate people, like possibly what happened to Shane Warne and people like that who happened to die 3 days after his third jab. But according to the newspaper, it was because he was drinking smoothies.
Smoothies? Really?
Yeah, he was on an extreme liquid diet apparently to lose some weight, and that's what killed him, not the jab. And anyone who says he was the jab is a dangerous conspiracy theorist.
That Shane Warne story, I mean, whatever it was, it isn't half suspicious. I don't know. I mean, they seem to have been kind of trying to smear it subsequent to his death, saying how he was with hookers and stuff like that. If he was, then it could well have been that did put paid to his heart, and that was provoked by the jab. I mean, it really does make you wonder. All these sports deaths, it's kind of a similar thing, being on a field or being in a bedroom with a couple of hookers.
He was undergoing vigorous exercise. I thought that was good.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm pretty certain that a bloke like that, he was in good shape. He was keeping fit regularly. He was incidentally the same age as me, which is one of the things that made me think a lot about it. Going to bed with a few hookers.
Same age as me, basically. How old are you, Bill?
I am 52 next week.
Yeah, I think I am. Or I am 52 or something. 1969, so I must be. Maybe I'm 53. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. Blimey. We'll probably be going around the circles a little bit with some of these things today, and we'll talk a bit more about the public and what have you. The other story that has been really, or more massive than anything really, that's not been covered, has been that what is it, a bioweapons facility, or at least a biolab in the Ukraine, and then Snopes and all that say it's a lot of bunk and conspiracy theory. And then it turns out that the Washington Post ran a story about that one of those very facilities in Kiev, I think, or somewhere in Ukraine, back in 2005, I think it was. According to Joe Bongino, anyway, Bongino, whatever.
Tucker Carlson covered it on Fox News as well. And the interesting thing, I've got a fairly sick sense of humour, I guess, but I've been chuckling to myself because everything the Russians have been saying during this invasion are all the things that we said when we invaded Iraq or wherever we invade anywhere. We found biological weapons things. There are people within this who are calling us in. Everything that they say is what we have been saying for the last 20 years when we go on our expeditions. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it does strike me as being rather amusing that they're mirroring back on us exactly the things that we've always said.
Yeah, absolutely. This oil thing. So I watched a press conference with Jen Psaki, Joe Biden's press secretary, yesterday, and she was asked a question by NBC about how the government can say the oil crisis now, the price of gas at the pumps in the States, $6.50 or something in California, I understand, for example, is Russia's fault and not Joe's. And Psaki said it is Russia's fault, and we've known for a long time that Russia was threatening the oil markets, and that's exactly what's going on. But the truth is that Joe Biden ran literally on a platform to dismantle the oil industry, the fracking and all the rest of it in the US. He ran on that. He was pressed about it in a debate against Trump. Trump said, are you saying that you want to get rid of the oil industry? And he said, well, yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a good.
And now they're trying to blame Russia. I mean, inflation at the beginning of... Sorry, let me finish this rant quickly, Bill. The inflation at the beginning of Biden's term, I think, was something like 2.1%. And apparently today it's gone up 7.9%. So my question to you, and all your thoughts on this, please, Bill, is haven't they deliberately been trying to dismantle the economy?
Well, from Greta Thunberg through to the German leaders who decided to allow Russia to control their energy, through to Biden and Johnson, who are obsessed over this green suicide. If they've not been doing it on purpose, they've been dreadfully misguided, and it's quite apparent that we discussed inflation on the show. So
that was a fascinating chat. We've got a show, Bill and me, talking about inflation. So look at it.
And it's quite clear as what's happening now in double quick time is that the poorest in society around the world are starting to feel the pinch. And they're starting to feel it heavily because, to point out the bleeding obvious, when your fuel goes up, your haulage costs go up. When your haulage costs go up, your food in the shop goes up. And then you've got people starting to struggle to do the weekly grocery shopping. And anyone who goes out to the supermarket or to your local high street grocers will have seen that prices are already skyrocketing. And it's affecting people because, if you're on £1 million a year living in Kensington, you probably won't notice that your greens have gone up 12-15%. But if you're living in a council estate in the north or the Midlands and you're struggling to get by because you might be on universal credit or whatever, you damn well do notice it, and people are starting to struggle. Thank goodness we're coming to the summer so that the heating bills won't be quite so high. This is recklessly irresponsible with the lives of millions of people, and if they're looking to sink the economy, to get the Great Reset, which we've also discussed, it's a very good way of doing it. Again, it shows a complete lack of giving a toss about normal, ordinary people who just try to get by day, who don't tune in to shows like this to understand what's going on. They're too busy trying to survive, too busy working 2 jobs maybe in some cases. And what they won't be able to understand and what they're going to be suffering right now is the fact they can't afford to put food on the table. And no one's going to give a toss about it. No one's going to give a toss about it until it's too late to do anything about it. And that's the sick thing about it. That's the thing that cheeses me off. That's why my minor rant about the champagne Charlies on GB News and people like that who couldn't give a toss about what's happening to ordinary people because they don't know any. They don't know any ordinary people. They don't live in an ordinary place where there's, I can look out this window. I guarantee you there are people who cannot put food on the table. And I'm no bleeding heart lefty. I'm quite the opposite. I'm a libertarian. I'm all for stand on your own 2 feet. But when things are happening you can't control as a result of the fantasies, delusions and schemes of people who live in an alternative universe somewhere above us all in the stratosphere of government and billionaire corporations, then it makes me furious and cheesed off beyond words. And that's how I feel, Ollie, because it's only just begun. God help those people who don't know what's coming. And we're in for a rough old ride.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'll tell you what, they should give Bill a show on GB News. I agree with what you say about GB News. I never watched it, to be honest with you, because I just never got into watching it. But also because when it was launched by Andrew Neil, at least they got rid of him. But if GB News was any good, they should give you a show. I really mean that. You'd be wicked. You'd present a great show. But they wouldn't let you talk about the sort of stuff that you talk about.
Not a chance. GB News is just the cover for the Brexit Party on air, or Reform Party, or whatever they are now. It's the same thing.
Really? Do you think so? Do you think so?
No, you've only got to look at some of the people involved in it. And I'm not going to get into slating individual people, but there's some of them who they were bit part players in the whole TICE type project.
Really? I didn't know that.
They're never gonna do the kind of stuff that is required at the moment, which it's everyday, grassroots, revolutionary, radical, of people who know what's going on in the world, who are feeling it day by day. They'll never do that because they're too busy going out afterwards and having a couple of glasses of champagne and then having their hair done and all the rest of it. I probably sound like an angry working class revolutionary, but it's because I am. Because this has forced me. What's been going on over recent years has forced me to feel this way. This country is dominated by people who've been bought out by the establishment, and even those who the working classes clung to as their saviours during the Brexit campaign are bought out, and that's the problem. There are too few radicals out there who are prepared to run onto the spikes and actually sacrifice whatever it takes to get things changed, because all you're going to do is offer them a little show somewhere, make a few quid and have a nice party time, surround them with plenty of pretty girls and boys, and life's all right.
Yeah. Well, Pauline Davis in the comments says, happy birthday, Bill, for next week to help cheer you up.
Thank you, Pauline.
She also says, I've just seen a post that the government have paid tens of millions of pounds for a jab that they hope may provide for all variants. Quote, nice little earner for farmer, destination for the people.
Do they know? How do they know it's going to provide for variants that don't exist yet?
We've got Bionic Pineapple in the room. I know that, who that is. And Paul Reesham, Mark Conway, and I don't know who else, probably other people. Charlie Barton is here. That's on YouTube. Look, if anybody wants to call in, this is your last chance. So do chao.click /Zoom. You have to get Zoom in order to call in. Piers is coming up in the second half. Mr. J is going to be popping on from Canada at some stage as well, with a bit of an on the ground from there. And I guess otherwise, Bill and me are just going to be kind of waxing lyrical about how mad the world is now. Coming up there. Hold on, queuing it up. Sorry, shouldn't have opened that tab. The Ukraine thing, Bill, again, is it me? I wonder often if I'm a bit misled from my online circles or whatever, but it appears to me that actually the propaganda war is totally won, and that the average Joe, maybe I'm being put off the scent, because that's what they're telling us on, I don't know, what is it, their morning edition programs all over, the news programs, whatever, are telling us that everybody is completely pro-Ukraine. Are they?
Well, it's the same thing has worked on every single debate that we've had for the last 10 years. If you're pro-Brexit, you're a racist. If you're concerned about jabs, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you're not sure about global warming, you're a science denier. And if you think that perhaps there might be more to Russia versus Ukraine than Ukraine being goodies, then you're a pro-Putin Russian agent. It's the same thing. There's no midway allowed. And 90% of people, I've no doubt, are buying it. Don't forget, most of our lives, you and I, Ollie, we've lived in a world where Russia's been the evil empire or the enemy. And we've still got Cold War stereotyping and Cold War propaganda to deal with. And I don't doubt that Putin is a horrible man. And I don't doubt that Russia do lots of naughty things. But I also don't believe that Ukraine and their president are saints. And I believe there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. But try saying that anywhere outside of the confines of this show. and you are immediately someone who's just got out of bed after a lovely big session with Putin, or been riding bareback on a horse with him. You know, it's the same old brainwashing. You know, you can't look for two sides of the story or any nuance. There's only one good and only one bad, and they're using it. Look at what they've done to Abramovich and Chelsea.
Yeah. What is your take on that? What is your? I mean, I know you know a lot more about football than I do. What is your take on what they're doing with basically? I know, stealing. No,
yeah, it's dangerous beyond words.
I'm not saying he's a good bloke, Abramovich. It seems to me he's dodgy as hell, but nonetheless, what's your take?
He's undoubtedly dodgy, but are the owners of Newcastle, who's Saudi Arabians, not dodgy?
Yeah.
You know, my own club, Wolves, is owned by the Chinese. You know, let's be honest about all this. None of these multi-billionaire type people perhaps live the most moral and virtuous path. The point is, they're saying now, because of the environment, we'll seize Abramovich's assets and so on. And everyone goes, rah, 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 super. And, you know, another football fans will laugh and smirk and go, oh, it's Chelsea. We don't like that. The truth is, it's a precedent.
I bet they haven't done that in decades, anything like that. Since the last war, or...
No. And it's a precedent, Ollie. Because if the government can seize someone's assets on political grounds... Yeah. Just you know, the pause I can leave after that sentence, I'm sure you and the listeners can make up their own conclusions of where that might head to. He's not being found guilty in a cause. There's just, he's politically undesirable, therefore we'll take his stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that is serious. That's very serious indeed. I'm just having a look. See, Tucker Carlson exposes the USA bioweapon cover-up. Let's just, you know what? Let's have a quick look at this, because it's a huge story. It's a massive story that's going on. And so this is a few minutes of Tucker Carlson. I'll pop it on the screen. Oh, hold on.
If you had told us just 4 days ago that the Biden administration was funding secret biolabs in Ukraine, of all places, we would not have believed you. Yeah, I don't think we're going to put that on TV. No thanks. Then if you told us that not only did the administration fund these secret biolabs in Ukraine, but that they then failed to secure the deadly contents of those labs before the Russian invasion, an invasion they knew was coming, an invasion they helped encourage, if you had told us that 4 days ago, we'd have dismissed you as a nut. It was just too preposterous. We would not want anything to do with a story like that. There was no way it could be true. It's too far out. In any case, we already knew for a fact that that story was false. How do we know that? Because we read USA Today, America's newspaper. Within hours of the Russian invasion, USA Today published a rebuttal to all those crazies who are yammering on about secret Ukrainian biolabs. Here was the headline. Fact check! False claim of U.S. biolabs in Ukraine tied to Russian disinformation campaign. So if you look carefully at the story, and we did, because we were interested, you notice that this fact check was sourced to Ukrainian government unnamed officials and then Biden State Department officials. So these were not exactly objective sources on this subject, but still, the story seemed definitive. It was totally emphatic. Quote, Russia has teamed up with China to further amplify the false claim of U.S. labs in Ukraine. Okay, USA Today says it's Russian disinformation. Maybe it is. On to the next story. But the fact checks didn't stop. That was weird. We kept seeing the same fact check again and again. It was almost like, despite endless official clarifications, some people refused to believe the Biden administration. They preferred Russian propaganda instead. And we assume they must be QAnon members. We assume that because Foreign Policy magazine told us that. According to Foreign Policy, QAnon, whatever that is, was frantically disseminating, quote, false claims of U.S. biowarfare labs in Ukraine. Those labs obviously didn't exist. It was all just another lie from the Russians, who lie for a living. Then the European Union weighed in, throwing its credibility behind the same claim. These are conspiracy theories, the EU told us. They're lies spread by Putin. An EU spokesman then reminded us that, quote, the credibility of information provided by the Kremlin is in general very doubtful and low. And that was good to know. Quote, Russian disinformation has a track record of promoting manipulative narratives about biological weapons and alleged secret labs. Yeah, we're not going to do a segment about secret labs in Ukraine. The last thing we want to do on this show is traffic in Russian disinformation spread by QAnon, so we took a pass on that story. And that's where things stood until yesterday, when we happened to tune in to a hearing of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Toria Nuland was testifying, so we were interested. Nuland's one of the people who brought us the Iraq War, never apologized for that, and kept getting promoted, because that's how D.C. works. Toria Nuland is now Joe Biden's Undersecretary of State in charge of Ukraine, and she knows a lot about Ukraine. In 2014, Toria Nuland engineered a coup in Ukraine in the name of democracy, of course. So she is a highly informed source about Ukraine. So she was having this colloquy with Senator Marco Rubio of Florida during her testimony. And at one point, Rubio took a tack that we were not expecting at all. He asked Nuland if Ukraine had biological weapons. We never imagined Ukraine would have biological weapons. Why would Ukraine have bioweapons? So it seemed like a pretty strange question. But it wasn't half as shocking as the answer he got. Watch what Toria Nuland said.
Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
Okay, I'll tell you, God bless Tucker Carlson. I love that guy. I think he's the best journalist on the mainstream media by a long chalk.
It was a good segment. He's opened up the conversation on something there. But it actually, although he does it in a sort of sardonic, tongue-in-cheek way at times when he says these things, but it took some guts to actually open up that conversation, because that's really not amongst Joe public, because they're not going to want to even dream to think about it, but amongst the people who could damage his career, that's going to really have caused some waves up.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he often goes for it. He always pretty much goes for it, it seems to me. But I mean, that is just massive, absolutely massive, because it entirely throws a question. I mean, he goes on for another 15 minutes if you want to check out Tucker Carlson on YouTube or whatever. I don't think he's been banned from there, although he's pushing it. But he goes... It really makes you wonder. I mean, we know that they tried to dismiss the allegation about the Wuhan laboratory or what have you, and that subsequently it looks as though that was very reliable, that theory, and proven by Fauci's funding and all the rest of it. And now it makes you wonder, was Ukraine about something maybe more than just, if you like, territory grabbing? Was Putin trying to get onto hold of those labs, or to stop something nefarious from going on? I don't know, but I suspect there is so much, well, there is, that we just don't know.
I think the answer is more than one thing. I think the answer is probably a combination of all of it. It's there's no doubt that Ukraine is tactically very useful for Russia, and that Putin's got long-standing designs on territory there, but it may well have been prompted to move quicker by understanding that there were these labs, and God alone knows what's in these labs. I'm sure, actually have a feeling now that because the Chinese have officially commented on it as well.
Oh yeah.
I think when these labs do fall under full Russian control, I think they're going to be disclosing some stuff. And then we're going to be being told by our side, and I say it in quotation marks, that, that's disinformation. I'm not sure. I think
that actually leads me to wonder if they didn't get rid of RT, for example, because they couldn't have a semi, if you like, believable in terms of the smearing campaign that goes on towards any journalism that doesn't fit the official narrative. It makes you wonder if that's one of the reasons they got rid of RT, because they can't control RT's running order in the way that they can with the British media, for example, or the US
maybe
media.
so. I think banning RT was a pretty strange move, because if we're supposed to be the side of freedom and free speech, then we shouldn't be doing that. But on the other hand, let's remember that the Russian government doesn't always tell the truth either.
No,
this is the problem we're in, and this is why I feel like retreating out into the woods with a shotgun and a porch somewhere hidden away and just being on my own away from it all, because I don't believe either side. I don't believe the Russians, and I do not believe our side either. There's much more going on in the world today than we are being allowed access to, and we are deliberately being misinformed, and we are deliberately having information held back from us, because I think the changes and the plans and the alterations to our everyday life are so huge that I think that the powers that be have decided it's not the kind of thing they can have an open debate about. It's just too overreaching and overarching a subject, too dramatic a change. So they're going to withhold it from us and just do it. That's how I see it.
Tucker Carlson actually even pointed out in that oratory that 2014 in Ukraine was a coup, that it was a regime change.
It was, with them waving EU flags and having lots of money poured into them by the Americans and the EU.
So NATO expands into Putin's backyard, and then the Western press is telling us that Putin was supposed to just say, yeah, no, it's fine, park your nukes or whatever in the back garden.
Yeah.
It's just not going to. It was never going to happen. I mean, Russia, whether whoever likes it or not, is a superpower. You know, that's what the Cold War was about, or supposed to be, and was, at least largely. And the West just took the piss. Did they really expect? They're so arrogant. How arrogant these people are. You know, I'm not pro-Putin, but the other thing is they just completely ignore, the mainstream media completely ignore the similarity in culture, the fact that people in Russia and Ukraine have got so many relatives, cousins and whatever in the other territory.
Well, would Biden allow the Russians to put their weaponry and missiles in Mexico?
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't happen. We have to deal in the reality of global politics and global strategy. And it's not like the Russians hid the fact that they were a bit peed off.
He probably would, actually. No, Biden probably would now.
Well, all right, then, let me rephrase. A sane American president.
Yeah. Somebody that worked for America. That is it, isn't it? These people, they don't work. None of them. I don't believe... Do you think that Biden works remotely for the Brits? Sorry, Bojo. Wrong B.
No. Well, Boris works for Boris. Biden doesn't know where he is or who he is. This is the thing that we've got. We've got the collapse of our Western civilized democracies on the back of totally, almost uniquely incompetent people having been put into positions of authority and power across the board. And
Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab goes on video and boasts about it, talking to that pundit that is always on CNN, something like that. I don't know, Council of Foreign Relations or something like that. Some gig, and he's there. What was it? He said we penetrate the cabinets. We penetrate the cabinets. That's the West, the World Economic Forum, with the Great Reset. This is the guy that wrote the book, The Great Reset. And the mainstream media don't cover any of that, none of it. And they don't cover any of that on GB News, Bill.
Oh, no, they won't. No. But I mean, if you look at the great leaders of the last century or so, how many of them would be allowed to come to power now? I'll tell you that Margaret Thatcher would never have been allowed to come near power. Winston Churchill rocked too many boats. He was not exactly...
he was rudderless. He was incapable of being controlled, and therefore
exactly. Lloyd George, you can talk about a whole raft of it. President Reagan, you name it.
Yeah.
Well, any of these people who've been significant leaders who did things that were good for freedom in some respect, whether you like them or not, they did some things that rocked the boat. They'd never, ever reach power now. You only have to look at the last one who significantly rocked the boat, which was Trump, and look at what happened to him in the last election. And I'm not a big Trump fan, by the way, but pretty obvious he wasn't going to be allowed to have a second term in it. You know, he only, when he won the first term, it's only because they never expected he would. So there's, you know, it's we've lost the capacity to elect mavericks, to get these people to come out of the blue and shake things up. It's gone, and you end up with the Trudeaus of this world and all these people who've been groomed for power since they were a nipper.
Literally
and
groomed.
they just do as they're told.
Literally groomed. Yeah. Again, Klaus Schwab, he goes on in that interview to say that Trudeau is one of his boys, and that half of the Canadian cabinet are on script, and so on and so forth. Just absolutely incredible. I did have a question there. I forgot what it was.
Well, it's probably a long. Maybe we can carry on talking about the fact that we've no democracy for a start, because democracy isn't just about politicians. It's about who leads the press and the media. It's about who leads our institutions, and they're all coming from the same kind of background. They're all coming from the same schooling. They've all got the same views, and they control every aspect of our lives. It doesn't matter how many. If someone bolts through and wins a couple of elections, gets themselves to be a politician for a short time, they're limited. They can't. They still can't see any more than you or I. I know that because it happened to me, and I knew no more then than I do now. No information was available to me. It was all blocked. There's no way of breaking through. We are in an end game. And it's a time where people have to understand that there's a pretense of democracy, but no more than that, and a pretense of freedom. And understand as well, when you get your news and your information, to take 99.99% of it, no matter who it's from, with a pinch of salt.
Gas, $8.63 a gallon, regular. Highest on record, of course. Home heating oil, $5 to $6 a gallon. Yeah, dark winter indeed. Unbelievable. It just and this is just the beginning. I mean, people really, really is going to presumably be a massive. I guess summer will help, but the gas thing is going to cripple so much, and so many companies are going to go out of business. It's another way that the production chains are going to collapse. Well, they already have been. And I mean, what do people need to do in the States? Presumably, the Democrats will get a thrashing in this year, in the midterms. Will that help?
To a small degree, I guess it might make a little bit of a difference, but only in as much as it's all you can do. All you can do is go out and throw your vote against these people, but the momentum is already there. The things are already happening. Now, we should have been investing years ago, for example, in new nuclear power plants. We should be fracking in this country by now. There's so many things that we could have done that were obvious that needed to be done, and we didn't do them. And you can't just turn things on and off with a flick of the switch. So even if tomorrow Biden fell, Johnson fell, Macron fell, all of them fell, we still will be 10 years away from putting everything right, because you just can't make things, the infrastructure doesn't change that quickly. And God forbid with the electric cars, when the ingredients for the batteries coming from territory controlled by China, and using the most awful methods imaginable to extract it from the ground. You look at all these things, and the planning for that has been going on for year after year after year. It won't change straight away, and we'd have to win, or anti-establishment parties would have to win a series of elections for well over a decade all around the world to even begin to start turning things back.
We've had Piers Garnham pop in, which is awesome. Piers, can you hear us? Got to unmute, mate. Right, there's another interesting little story I saw. Oh, hold on, I'm sorting out my keyboard. Right, and that is, and you know what? This actually sums it up where we are in terms of the censorship now. DuckDuckGo, yeah. CEO announces Google-style censorship scheme of content deemed Russian disinformation. So even DuckDuckGo now has joined the globalist cabal.
Yeah.
Piers, hello, mate.
How
In
you
London.
doing? I haven't. Yeah, I've just got in from work, so I'm a little bit off track in terms of what you've been talking about. But
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
yeah,
You
no,
know what we've been
you're
talking
right.
about. I'll tell you what. What do you think we've been talking about?
Well, what's going on at the moment? I mean, it's yeah, you're right. There's complete censorship across the board at the moment. I mean, it does look increasingly like we're, getting towards some sort of endgame scenario. I mean, you've got Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of State or whatever in the States, admitting that they have biolabs in the Ukraine.
I played that clip.
Yeah. Oh, well, fair enough. Well, there you go. And I mean, it's also, I mean, there's all sorts of theories as to why the world's economy is being run down to the last. But yeah, it does look as if they've basically spent all the money. There's none left in any coffers, and obviously, you and probably both of you believe that COVID was something that they cooked up in order to try and bring in the Great Reset, as we've discussed in the past, and it's. I think that failed. Omicron, for better or worse, does seem to have given lots of people a natural immunity. The pandemic's on the back foot now, and it is interesting. I mean, I've heard all kinds of rumors that maybe the biolabs in Ukraine were the ones that supplied Wuhan, and then it was subsequently released from there. And obviously, with what with those labs being on the Ukraine, on the border with Russia, Putin obviously thought, what? I mean, interestingly enough, I don't know whether either of you have seen.
No, hold on. No, we were talking. Actually, you were completely wrong. We were talking about Katie Price covers her newly enlarged bust in a cropped T-shirt as she jets back from Thailand after her 13th boob job, which was left her family horrified. That's it.
Yeah,
Katie Price. Hey, Bill.
Katie Price is a bit of a sad character, isn't she? Bless her. She's not in a particularly good space, but I wish her the best.
They want us to be reading about Katie Price. I nearly saw there.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I never fancied her personally.
No, I didn't. I mean, she looked all right before she'd had any work done at all. She looked like a normal.
When she was on page 3.
Yeah, well, actually, I think that was after she'd had one of her first boob jobs. But
who's your favourite page 3 girl?
Oh crikey! I never really was a true advocate of the Sun or page 3.
Really? Oh, Bill, I bet you liked Linda Lasardi, yeah, because you're that old.
Yeah, she was all right, but I also liked Joe Guest. I don't know if you remember Joe Guest. I was a big fan
interviewed her. I did years ago on Bloomberg.
What's her phone number?
We went for a drink after. We went for a drink at the pub over the road, and she was quite, kind of.
I think you may have introduced me to her as well, Ollie. I don't know. I can't remember, but
not Joe Guest. Melinda Messenger, I think I introduced you
to. Tiffany from Live TV. That was who I met.
Tiffany.
When you were the editor of Live TV News, which was that wonderful cable TV channel in the tower in
Canary
Docklands,
Wharf.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Canary Wharf, that's right. That was hilarious. Tiffany's Top Tips, where she would read the news and strip at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I interviewed her about that. Yeah, when I was, yeah. Anyway.
She was actually all right. She was a nice girl.
She was lovely.
Yeah, she was.
I wonder what she's doing now. Yeah. Jennifer Lopez hits the high seas. The star invents. I tell you, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. Do you think that if they did print what is really going on, just imagine that they did fantasy media or whatever. Tomorrow they print exactly what is going on. What would happen? What would people do?
I think they'd still be in a state of disbelief. I mean, there's such a massive degree of cognitive dissonance out there right now. I mean, just seeing what's going on in the British press right now is just extraordinary. I mean, if you follow the likes of Liz Truss or Boris or whoever, on Twitter or any of the other social media, outlets, then they're just like stuck records. It's just like the barbaric attack by Putin, the barbarism, and this. I mean, it's just endless. They're all WEF advocates.
But if people were confronted with it, yes, he's right. If people were confronted with that, what would they do, really?
I think the only way, obviously, I can't see us going to mad, mutually assured destruction. I just don't see that happening.
Do you think it would send people insane?
I think it will send a lot of people. I mean, I still am positive about the future. I still think we need to get through this very tumultuous time in world history. But I do think we're going to come out smiling the other side. But I think there are going to be a lot of refugees. In terms of mental outlook, I mean, what we've been taught our entire lives has been a lie. I really genuinely do.
It's been absolute bollocks.
Yeah,
the whole bloody story has been absolute bollocks, Bill.
Yeah.
Yep, it has. And I'll tell you exactly what would happen if a newspaper printed the absolute truth tomorrow. First of all, the readership for that newspaper would plummet through the floor. And secondly, the editor would probably have an unfortunate accident on his way home. That's what would happen. Because you aren't allowed to do that. And even if they just left the editor alone, maybe if they just gave a little naughty scandal about him, trying to ruin his life somehow, the readership would go through the floor, because the truth of the matter is, in modern terms, they can't see Joe Guest boobs anymore, but people would rather see Joe Guest boobs than see the truth about how their freedom is being stolen away from them. That's the truth.
That is the truth. It's quite extraordinary. I mean, when you have this sort of revelation, which obviously the three of us have, it really does make you feel like you're living in a kind of outside the matrix. Like you feel like you're one of, like, your Trinity or Neo or whatever. Where you walk around and you look at the world around you and you look at the way people address you, and especially if you actually bring up any of these issues on social media, which I do still, on Facebook and Twitter and what have you, and the level of cognitive dissonance is just so off the scale that people are just having. The thing is, it's basically because we've had time, or at least I have, with the work that I've done over the last few years, where I have been able to educate myself and do a lot of research, and people are. Just everyday people with busy lives and kids and all the rest of it haven't had that opportunity to really dig deep into, to listen to all these whistleblowers and people that do have genuine intelligence. They haven't had a chance to do it. And even if you post links, they don't look at them, and they don't really, there's no point really. It's a bit of a, false economy. It doesn't really make much. It doesn't achieve anything. But you've done it, I've done it. The three of us have all had a chance to do some proper research over the last 20 years, and that puts you in such a completely different mindset. It's quite extraordinary just how differently I view the world to so many people I know, and it does make me feel quite alienated at times. But at the same time, I still believe that what I've learned is not false. I mean, I've heard too much valid testimony, from decent people who have no business spreading, lies or disinformation. For example, there's so many personal accounts on Twitter of like vaccine injury and things like that, where there would be no rational reason why people would lie about that. It's and yet there they are, documented case after case after case after case.
And then you look at the official figures. I mean, Piers, for example, I want to pull this stat back out. 9 out of 10 COVID deaths, according to the government, recently in the 3-week period, were people who'd been double vaxxed. Government figure.
Double or treble?
I thought it was double. I think it was basically double.
See, I'd love to know where.
I don't know.
Can you find where have you got the actual government resource material for that? Because I tried to find it and sort of messed up and got absolutely lambasted for it on.
Hold
Facebook.
on, we're coming up to a break. Right, we'll talk about that as
Okay.
soon as we come back.
Right.
Well, actually, I'll mute Revolution Radio. I'll mute you, and then we'll talk about that. And be back in a couple of minutes.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Yeah. So I kind of contradicted myself there, didn't I? So we're still here, but there is a break. So if you want to take a pee, this is a good time to do it. It's just kind of half
What I
time.
do is top up my glass of red wine.
Good man, Piers. Have you and Bill haven't been on the show together before, have you?
We have. We've been on shows before. I mean, Bill's more of a regular, but we've definitely been on one or two of your shows in the past. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Piers, I used to do the show with originally on Revolution Radio, and then that became Daily Brexit and then Chaos.
We've done a bucket load of shows over the years, haven't we? I mean, my God, it's been extraordinary. And you've managed to get some really interesting guests on. It's been an interesting ride. I mean, what are you doing? Are you changing how are you changing the format of this show? I mean, obviously you're not going to let it completely die. I mean,
no, I don't want to let it completely die, but I did kind of want to have a break. I think a little bit because I just am flummoxed by what Bill was saying about the complacency, about the apathy, about the.
Yeah, I agree. It's very difficult.
It's so frustrating. That's the bottom line. It is so frustrating.
You are asking people to literally tear the foundations of their whole cognitive existence from beyond, beneath them. And of course, they're not willing to do that. They've built, towers, of their understanding of reality throughout their lives, for however many years they've been on the planet, and they are obviously very reluctant to have people like us chipping away at their foundations and destabilizing what their version of reality is, that's what we represent. We represent something that completely destabilizes their sense of reality, and they obviously are very aggressive about their approach, in terms of fighting it.
Apparently Rihanna is pregnant. Just thought I'd chip that in.
Oh wow!
Isn't it great? Yeah, I'm just looking at the Daily Mail homepage just to see what they're covering today. I thought that this long show format also was too long. I think that's one of the problems. There are some great, awesome snippets, but people don't want. It's the podcast generation, isn't it? I know that there are some established names that do so well and are brilliant, but I think that a show like this has missed the boat in terms of trying to create that sort of format. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of the internet is going to be, increasingly available, over the coming.
I got this thing on Facebook. This was one of the other things. Yeah, straw that broke the camel's back was Facebook's privacy protection, which is basically a monitoring scheme where they can monitor everything. And they rolled it out, I think, last year or something to a bunch of high, if you like, distribution channels. And now they're rolling it out to basically people that are doing stuff like me. And they will be rolling out pretty much across the board. And I was actually given a deadline to sign up to these new T's and C's, which include essentially to accept this Pravda-esque spy agency to monitor my Facebook account entirely. It's supposed to be a social network. It was tomorrow is the deadline. I'm not signing up to their new T's and C's. And so my Facebook account, I said it would be dying. And then when I put out that post, they give me a 7-day ban. So I can't even say goodbye to people. I signed up to a social network and it became a spy agency.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. But they get away with it because they roll out these kind of things by stealth and people don't know.
Well, I mean, Facebook and Twitter and all these were designed by the intelligence services from the off. I mean, people like Zuckerberg and what have you, Zuckertits. He's Hold
on. Let me just quickly check. Right. I've unmuted Revolution Radio, Wake Up UK. I think we're going out on YouTube today. But they might ban the show or pull it or something. The vaccine is a lot of crap. So go pull it. But it is 9 out of 10, according to the government, UK government, YouTube. This is a message directly to Google. The UK government published the stat: 9 out of 10 in a 3-week period that were double vaxxed was the highest. More died. 9 out of 10 COVID deaths had been double quaxed. YouTube. If you want to pull the show, pull the show. Why don't you just pull the UK government as well?
I think Jay's just posted a link to the actual reference material. I don't know where it says deaths fall among unvaccinated but rise among fully vaccinated with treble jab now. Hold on, 8 in every 10 COVID-19 deaths in England. But that's an article in some sort of newsy publication. What we really need is, if you're still listening, Jay, is the actual kind of government page.
Yeah,
where it
that's right.
Takes,
please sort it out.
I mean, you can't find it in a Google search
But you do look at. You can go to the Office of National Statistics and sites like this. I've done it, or the CDC in the States or whatever, and you can see these various stats which completely show up the official narrative, completely show it up, but of course the mainstream media don't cover it.
It is, I mean, I'd love to be able to see a link where it actually officially says that. I mean, obviously we know. I mean, even on GB News, which is a mixed bag, to be honest with you, but you do get.
You bring it up too. We were talking about GB News. Piers, what's your take on GB News?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think there are journalists that work for GB News that are kind of close to being on the same page as us, but obviously they are restricted in terms of everything they can and can't. I mean, they are.
Who's that? Neil Oliver. Is that it?
What's his name? Mark Stein is quite good as well. He's a good one to watch. He has quite a sort of cynical view of the world around him, and certainly wouldn't balk at some of the ideas that the three of us are discussing now. I mean, it's it's a mixed bag. I mean, you've got slightly more conservative, guys on GB News, but then you've got. It depends on when you're watching and who's presenting. I mean, they do interview people who are more on the kind of the page that we are. So it's certainly a channel that you get more interesting conversation on than the main, the majority of the mainstream. I don't even watch the mainstream anymore, to be honest with you. And I can't bring myself to watch the news on Channel 4 or ITV or God forbid the BBC. I mean, it literally makes me feel kind of ill.
Really? Don't you
Yeah,
like that? Lovely Hugh Edwards with his, nice Welsh brogue and his, nice smile. If you look at this, pictured, this is in the Daily Mail. You can't look at this because I can't be bothered to put the thing on the page on the screen. But it says dating profile that depraved ex-BBC Radio 1 DJ Mark Page, 63, used to ensnare poverty-stricken children as young as 12 in the Philippines in his web of grotesque sexual abuse as he is jailed for 12 years. Ex-Radio 1 BBC DJ Mark Page.
That's right,
convicted of a string of child sexual offences.
How many of these people have to be caught and convicted, before people start to realise that that is actually being done on purpose? I mean, they deliberately employ people with questionable predilections, because they're so easy to control. They let them get away with whatever it is they're up to, without, they can, as long as they toe the line and broadcast the way that they're being asked to, so it's this is the thing. You cannot rise through the kind of power pyramid unless you're either completely controllable or fully signed up, to the philosophy that's being delivered. So yeah. I mean, you literally cannot attain a high. Although it's interesting because I'm personally acquainted to somebody who's in a position of power. More her husband than she is, but she was somebody who spent time as a Middle Eastern advisor to Bush and Blair, and is now an ambassador and all the rest of it in Poland. And she says she's the British ambassador to Poland at the moment, and she's a good person. And I do wonder what she's party to. Her politics is fundamentally different from mine. She and her husband are sort of staunch advocates of the European Union and all the rest of it. And it makes me think that, maybe they, even people at that level of the game, that level in the power structure, are denied, the full picture. I don't know. It's very difficult to sort of rationalize in my mind because as people, I love them and they're nice people. You met Pete, Anna's husband at my wedding, and he played a part, and Anna's a decent human being on the face of it, who holds a very responsible job at the moment, considering where she's currently, being the ambassador of, but you do wonder, I mean, she's got to be party to some pretty interesting intelligence, and therefore. I don't know. It makes it very difficult for me to understand sort of how they rationalize it, how they can justify what they do and the stance that they take. Maybe there are things out there that we just don't know about that sort of do usurp a lot of the sort of questions that we have. I honestly don't know, but it's interesting, isn't it? That
Bill talks about all that. Bill, you talk about that a lot.
Well, only in as much as what Piers is saying, I think it rings true with me because I've come across a lot of people over the years who were in relatively, it would appear, high up positions, and they had no more idea of what was going on from one day to the next than the drunk bloke on the bus who comes and sits next to you and you don't really like him being there. They've got no idea.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's it. They can only work on the basis of what they're told, and they are in a position of responsibility, and they are being advised and then told to act in a certain way. And I think it is a kind of reactionary role, really, and they have to keep their own personal feelings or to themselves and just get on with and toe the company line.
They're representatives. They're just there to simply put into the right language and the right communication what's already been decided. They aren't playing a part in that decision. But they are being, this is what's happening. This is where we are in the world. Go out there and face the music and explain it to people. That's what I would say the vast majority of the public facing officials and politicians in the world are. There's very, very few of them who are fully aware of what decisions are being taken and why they're being taken. And you could look at so many politicians and understand the fact that they may have come across as bumbling fools on the telly because they are. And when you meet them, they're no more intelligent than they come across on the television. They simply are not the people making the decisions. They're just the public face of it. They're the people who are rolled out onto camera and told to explain it. And they're told how to explain it and why.
Case of, Anna, who's the British ambassador in Poland at the moment. She's a very intelligent woman, who speaks Polish and is, been well educated as is her husband. And it's difficult for me to sort of fully rationalize is how they can just sort of do what they're told without questioning it. Or, I suppose when you reach a sort of powerful degree of, a position of power or power in inverted commas, obviously it's on the face of it, a very responsible position. But it's so many people who are well educated and seemingly intelligent, seem to just sort of, I think you get to the stage in your life sometimes where, the kind of your reputation and overall income, and
money and prestige. That's the answer to your point you're making. Why would people go along with this? Money and prestige. And I don't say that in an insulting or aggressive manner, because I can understand exactly why. And I've seen that myself when I was in Brussels.
They're not bad people. These are not bad.
They just get tempted into, and it's natural. If you get a lovely lifestyle and all the things that come with it and money, it's easy to fall into doing that. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human and easily tempted.
Yeah, I know the another guy who's the global head of internal audit for Lloyd's Bank. Another sort of rocket scientist who sort of Cambridge educated, shot through the ranks and now runs the whole of Lloyd's Bank's internal audit tree. And obviously power and wealth, he's a genuinely nice guy. But I'd love to know what he really knows and what he
I'm going to
choose.
Mr. J has popped in from Canada, and I want to find out what's going on in Canada. But before I do, for a change, I'm going to actually read a few comments, because I have always been so crap at that, which is ridiculous. But it's been quite a fast-moving show or whatever. But anyway, today I'm going to do it. Downliner, that happens to be Jay Carey, I know. Hey Jay. God bless you, man. Why isn't a civil war breaking out in the UK after the recent news that showed 9 out of 10 jabbed are the ones dying now, according to government statistics? YouTube, they seem more concerned with a manufactured war. Victoria Kesterton answers Downliner, probably because they don't care about the vaccine victims. Pauline Davies, those bio labs are scattered all over Ukraine. And John Piers says Taiwan next. These labs are in Taiwan as well. This is bigger than you can think. Pauline Davies says the bio labs contain all sorts of pathogens. And Michelle Reed mentioned Skripal, which I wonder if that wasn't a lot of old crap too. When, what was it? Russian tipped umbrella stuff. Victoria Kesterton, I don't believe any government wants nuclear war at all, because they're too happy in their positions, ripping off the people, or they're simply going underground. Paul Reesham says, according to X22 report, Russia is destroying deep state biolabs, deep state money laundering facilities, and deep state neo-Nazi organizations. Have been hearing a bit about that as well. I don't know what to think about X22, really. Good, very entertaining, though. Paul Reese... oh, that was him. Hey, Paul. Mookie Pook says, such a sad day. Thanks for your show, Ollie. At times, you've cheered me up. Other times, maybe want to kill myself. But it's been good to have a dose of chaos in my life overall. Thank you, Mookie. God bless you. Michelle Reed was the Russian Skripal from Ukraine. He was poisoned with Novichok in the UK. I'm in Salisbury, who also has Our biolab. Porton Down. Yeah, just around the corner.
Down's, I mean, it's far more likely to have been a security breach from Porton Down than it was, Putin organising two would-be assassins to go over and use something as James Bond as Novichok. I mean, the collateral damage alone could have caused thousands of deaths. I mean, and they were supposedly, they left it in a bin in central Salisbury. I mean, the whole thing just reeks of nonsense, to be honest with you. And obviously somebody at Porton Down messed up, and there was a massive security breach, and so the British government just thought, right, well, let's blame the Russians. We always blame the Russians for everything, so let's blame them for this. And it's interesting that both the Skripal people, Sergei and his daughter, disappeared. Never to be heard of again afterwards. Which is quite convenient when you don't want anybody to find out the truth. Plus, the BBC dramatised the whole thing.
Did they? That's a sure sign. It was all that they're rewriting history. That's what they're doing with Savile, isn't it? That's what they.
Most of the show, the dramatisation of the Skripal's going, Putin did it. Putin did it. Putin did it. It was like, morning. Would you? Cornflakes. Putin did it. Putin did it. It was. I mean, it was literally kind of like that. It was absurd. And if the BBC dramatise anything that's supposed to be real, then you can guarantee it's not.
Right, Mark Singer. Multiple weak Western leaders facing off against a strong leader that knows a penis from a vagina. That's Mark's opinion, that Putin knows the difference between a penis and a vagina. Because apparently, Trudeau, I'm not sure, just Trudeau, does he recognise that you're allowed to identify as a woman if you've got a penis? Probably. Pauline Davis, did you see the Speaker of the Canadian House, when the question arose about who in the House, the Commons thing, whatever, was a Schwab graduate, Klaus Schwab, thought he was going to have apoplexy, the Speaker. Yeah. And Learning Gino says, just been banned by Fascist Book. He means Facebook. I call it Fascist Book too. For posting pictures of the Azov battalions on a post showing Putin with a swastika. Just been banned by Fascist Book for posting pictures of the Azov battalions on a post showing Putin with a swastika. No free speech, mate. Paul Rees-Ham, Ollie, we need this show more than ever. Yeah. The thing is, even that last week's show, Bill, that was awesome. What a cracker that was, huh? He's asleep.
Yeah. It was an excellent show. Good guests, good lineup you put on there.
Really good, man.
Very informative. I mean, I learned
discussion.
a lot during the show.
But we got 870 people watch that, and the truth is that they probably were all, I don't know, UKIP power cheeks or something.
Probably. I think the problem you get is shadow banning and things like that. It's very difficult to get anything out. I've noticed that myself. I do my sort of 30-second walking rant videos, and a couple of years ago I was getting thousands of people watching them. Now I get 50 or 60. Maybe it's because I'm boring and no one wants to see
No, it's because you're getting shadow banned.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just such a ridiculous, dramatic drop. I remember when they changed their algorithm at one point on Fascist Book, and Daily Brexits that had been getting 25,000 views a show, literally within 1 week, overnight, went down to about 300 views a show.
It's happened with other shows like this. There was another show that used to go out like this, and they had an interview with Neil Hamilton on that had 5,000 views on it. The following month afterwards, they were getting 10 or 15 people watching it. And, I don't think it was because Neil peed everyone off. There was quite clearly they'd made enough of a ripple to come to the attention of the authorities, press the button, and make it difficult to find. It's embarrassing and that horrible.
GCHQ must employ thousands or quite a lot of people. I mean, they've got these little IT guys who are sat there in front of them, a board of screens. They've probably got, they're probably managing Christ knows how many accounts, in order to disseminate, a contradictory message, to whatever people are putting out there. And if, they work like that, and then And then, of course, they can just turn off your stream. It's happening on Facebook. It's happening on Twitter. It's happening, all over the place. I mean, it's
the horrible thing is, Piers, it's working.
Yeah, it is.
It's shutting down debate.
I think it's gonna take us going to the brink. I mean, I honestly don't know if there are contingency plans in place for, if they try and switch the internet off and blame it on the Russians or whatever, then I honestly don't know whether there is a contingency plan, where maybe Elon Musk is a good guy. I don't know. I have no idea. But maybe his satellite array can be used to sort of broadcast some sort of message.
Can I say something horribly old-fashioned?
Yeah.
I think the contingency plan is to resort back to going to the pub, going out and having public meetings, going out and talking to people. And I'm probably showing my age doing.
Is that why they got rid of the pubs?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? But that to me is the contingency plan, because I use social media and the internet to try and get broader messages out, of course. But during all the Brexit campaigns, the most powerful thing that we did was get there, the old-fashioned stand up at the front of a bunch of people in a pub, take people shouting abuse at you, make the argument back, and a bit of tub thumping. Now, I'm probably showing my age, and I did enjoy that kind of thing. But that made so much more impact, because everyone who went to those meetings, they went away either hating us or a convert. And a convert is going to go out and be a disciple of the message. And it's much more powerful than when you're doing something like this, and it becomes difficult then to, people want to share it on, but it's not visible and it's banned and it all, you haven't sort of got your hands on them and physically shook them and said, come on. And I think that to me is what needs to happen. We need a new generation of freedom fighting campaigners who are going to pubs, clubs, and wherever and do that. And I don't see it. I don't see anyone doing it, and they should be, because that's what
they probably can't afford it. If they could have afforded it, they won't be able to afford it soon.
Well, I tell these people off GB News and so on, rather than having a champagne reception at the end of a night's work and then putting the pictures all over Twitter or complaining about how much their hairdresser is, maybe they could actually use some of that money to get out around the country and do some public meetings. Or is it just because they're in it just to be showbiz celebrities, which is the truth, rather than people who give a damn about truth, reality, and campaigning? And that's what really pisses me off. I'm sorry about that. I've got to say it pisses me off, because these people don't do that, and yet they get lauded. And look at us, oh great, here's a nice picture. Look at my champagne, lovely party. None of that matters. What matters is going out and talking to the public and actually making them feel your passion in person and sharing the message. That's what's got to happen. Because the technology has been shut down by the money men.
See, last week, really what it was about, Piers, was unity, about asking about the small parties posing some sort of a genuine threat that we might get some kind of a debate out there.
Yeah, but I think
go on.
I do wonder, because obviously it's elections are heavily controlled. Although we did see the Brexit vote come true, I do think that steps were probably taken to counter that. We didn't
get Brexit.
We
got a broken up UK. That's what we got.
What I'm saying is that they didn't have enough in the way of contingency operations in place to be able to. I'd love to know what the actual percentile of people that voted for Brexit was. It was probably significantly higher than the 54 to 48%.
Yeah, you're right. Hold on, Piers. Let me please, Mr. J. I apologise. I completely forgot you were there. Mr. J in Canada. Look, hold on, Piers. Hold on. Let's get Mr. J involved in this. What is going on the ground, sir? Ottawa, where you are, for example, what's going on now? Is the trucker thing? Presume there's nothing more, because it's never in the news. It's always about Ukraine. So presumably the COVID was, I don't know, was it a dream or what?
Well, okay. So first off, with the truckers, there are still protests happening, but because because of a lot of what you guys were talking about with the shadow banning, a lot of it has been suppressed. So the protests are nowhere near as large as they were before, but they are ongoing, and there are people still coming out to them. And the recent thing that's happened is they've now banned F Trudeau flags on Parliament Hill.
They banned them? Really?
Yeah,
you're not allowed to do the most basic thing in the world, which is to say,
yes.
F whatever leader it happens to be. Incredible.
Yeah. So that I mean, I don't know if that
Why would they bother doing that?
Court, but pardon?
Well, they must be pretty scared to do stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I think you guys saw, right? Like when Trudeau visited the UK, he was booed, right? I can't remember where it was, where exactly where it was outside Buckingham Palace. I can't remember, but he was booed. I mean, so
was that
are
hold on a
following
sec.
him wherever
He had his mask on when he was with Boris. Boris didn't.
Yeah.
He had his mask on when he was with Boris. When he was with the Queen, 96, 180 years old or something, he didn't bother wearing his mask then.
Nose to nose.
He just makes it up as he goes. We were talking about the WEF in part 1.
Yeah.
About Schwab was talking about boasting that Trudeau was one of his recruits and half the Canadian cabinet. Is the Conservative lot, since they got rid of that O'Toole, the Conservative leader who basically said he didn't give a damn about the protesters either, they got rid of him, which was amazing. It was a great sign. And then I saw Canadian Parliament in session, all sorts of great feisty stuff coming from the opposition, doing actually what an opposition should do. But what about now? Because the bottom line is that they still voted for that martial law, which thankfully has been rescinded. Why was it rescinded? So what is the political climate now? It just seems to me ultimately none of them are really being loud enough about what's really, really going on. Saying, look at what Klaus Schwab said about Trudeau, Canada. Are any of them saying stuff like that? Or is it just one big theatre play going on in Canada politically?
I mean, honestly, I think it is theatre at this point. I think the Conservatives are heavily infiltrated as well. I don't think as severely as the Liberals, but they are as well. So, I mean, I think the reality is we're not going to vote our way back to freedom. I think that's just the reality. We're going to have to eventually stand up and stop complying, stop listening to their mandates. And as soon as we start to do that, then suddenly the mandates will disappear because they want to always be the government, or whoever is in charge always wants to be in charge of the narrative, right?
Bill,
so
Mr. J is basically saying what Predator Jeff said last week, no?
Yeah, and he's right. But there are more democratic means of fighting back for your freedom than just voting. For example, they are doing what the truckers have done. They're withdrawing your consent from unfair or unjust or over-the-top laws. These are accepted and reasonable forms of democratic protest. And these are the things that need to be done. Because it's right what Mr. J says. Voting at the moment, not just in Canada, but across most of what we used to call the free world, means nothing because they're all in it together. So we need to do something within reason that will shake the system. And what we have to be careful with that is that when people don't go over the top, because that's counterproductive. But this kind of stuff the truckers have done, absolutely, that's the kind of protest that makes a difference because it hurts people's pockets and it makes a difference to the way that countries are run. And it's democratic and it's reasonable. And most people will look at that and say, yeah, that's just people trying to express themselves. And that they're a great example.
Another thing that I think is crucial right now is, and I don't know exactly how the banking system is running in the UK, but is to move your money out of the large banks and move them into smaller local banks. And the other thing is to use cash. to use cash as much as you can in every circumstance that you can use it.
Yeah.
These two things are going to greatly undermine the globalists' ability to control us.
Well, they would if people really did it. I mean, using cash, you're spot on. Shop local, all that. Don't use Amazon. All that stuff. You know, DuckDuckGo, just as an aside, Mr. J, talking of, you know, big names and all the rest of it, I was thinking about Google. And at DuckDuckGo, they have said that they are now going to start censoring your search results.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
they've
just-
now openly said it. I mean, who knows how long they've already been doing it, right? Now they're admitting to it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it looks like as soon as anything gets big enough, it gets
Squashed.
captured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to our Canadian guest? What sort of percentile of Canadian people do you think are sort of genuinely waking up now? I mean,
Great question.
Obviously we're bombarded with propaganda in the UK day in and day out across the majority of our media, and I'm sure Canada is no different. But how many people are, you know, with the limited resources we have to access decent information, are actually sort of beginning to wake up now, you know, to the fact that there may be something wrong with the official line?
Well, I think it's hard to say. I would though say that depending on what part of Canada you're talking about, there are different numbers of people who are awake, right? Like, if you go to the prairies, which have always been more conservative, I think they're far more aware of what's going on than, you know, central Canada, if you will, like Ontario and Quebec. I do think, though, that when Trudeau announced the freezing of bank accounts and the indemnification of the banks to do so, scared a lot of people, and I think a lot of people woke up to that. Now, again, I don't know how many people, but it was definitely enough, I think, to put pressure on them, and I think this was one of the major reasons why they reversed the Emergencies Act. I mean, he did an about face, and within 2 days he turned, and all the people who had voted for it now have egg on their face. Now, again, it's not through voting that we're going to get our liberties back, but the more and more we can show and shine light on how corrupt and ridiculous these guys are, I think the faster people are going to wake up. And there's no question the narrative is starting to slip, and I think that was one of the main reasons why there's been a shift towards focusing on Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if Putin has been genuinely going in and knocking hell out of these biolabs, you know, and he's got evidence to hand, the problem we've got is how does he present that evidence, you know, where the world as a whole will actually believe it, you know, because they've done such a good job of demonizing the man to the point of, you know, I mean, he's obviously, you know, he's obviously not white as white, you know, he's obviously, you know, he's you know, he's been around the block, you know, he's not a saint.
He's ex-KGB.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a checkered past for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely got to check his past, and I certainly don't trust Russia on everything. But it does seem to me that the reason why he went into Ukraine was because the globalists have got so many operations going on in, you know, they've been.
I told you, Bill. I told you he'd be going on about this. If you here we go. Carry on, Piers. Yeah,
no, I mean, it does seem. I mean, look, you got Biden and Burisma and Hunter, and they've got their paws. It's not just the Bidens; it's a lot of the cronies surrounding Biden that are heavily involved and heavily invested in Ukraine. I mean, it does seem that
it's like a massive money laundering.
I mean,
national state.
Most of the Ukrainian leadership have been corrupt beyond belief for decades, and that you know, if you think about the natural resources in Ukraine and what they've actually got going on, they should be one of the most wealthy Eastern European countries going. But the West has used them as a geopolitical kind of position point, you know, and have been raping the Ukrainian economy, keeping the average Ukrainian in relative poverty. and getting, massively rich off the back of it. And this is something that needs to come out. I mean, I heard somewhere that Hunter's been in court singing like a canary. I don't know whether that's true or not. We'll have to wait and see. But I can't help but feel we are coming to some sort of crescendo point in the whole thing, because you've just got to look at the level of noise. You know that lovely scene in the film. What was it called? The one about the rock band, the heavy metal rock band, Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, there's that scene where he's showing him his amp, and he goes, "Now listen, most amps only go to 10, ours go to 11." And the interview guy goes, "Why not just make 10 loud?" That is a good thing, because
The problem is, though, Putin is such an unreliable witness, because we've got all sorts of things coming out. The stuff about the biological labs. I was fascinated by that as you were, Piers, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. But it comes out at the same time as he says that the Ukrainians have been bombing themselves. And that he's had to attack a hospital because it was full of extremists and things like that. Now, there are some things that happen in war that are deeply unpleasant and unfortunate, and sometimes missiles go in the wrong place and there's collateral damage. But instead of saying that, they come out with a load of garbage that's completely unbelievable. Now, what they should, if they were telling the truth, or even a semblance of the truth, it would be a lot easier then to believe what I believe is probably happening, that there are these biological labs. But at the moment, Putin or the Russians could turn up with a picture of it in action, creating smallpox or whatever, and no one would believe it.
But
there's no credibility whatsoever in what they say.
But in the U.S., the Victoria Nuland, I think she's the undersecretary. She admitted that there were biolabs. Like this.
Okay,
this
that's
is not
3 times now. Victoria Nuland has been mentioned on the show by people that weren't on the show at the same time. That's how big that story is. Go on, Mr. J. Carry on.
Well, I mean, it's just clear that
everybody knows about it now. It's encouraging.
No. The average Joe doesn't know jack whatnot about it. They know nothing about such a massive angle on the whole. What's going on?
Yes, but I look at it a lot like this. Like if you have a dam. And the leaks are starting to come out, and they're starting to plug the leaks with their fingers, right? Yeah. And they're starting to get to a point where the leaks are starting to get past what they can plug. And I think that the crescendo that you're talking about, Piers, I think we're starting to reach that. Now, I would imagine that it's kind of like, a lot of these cases where things incrementally increase until the floodgates open, and then it just crashes out. And I think that is probably what's going to happen, that eventually
the mainstream media will come on side with the truth.
They'll shut everything down before they allow that crescendo to happen. I mean, as you say, I like the analogy. I like the plugging the holes, and I agree the dam's going to break. But when the dam breaks, that's when Putin will cut the cables, or at least that's what the West will say. Putin's about to cut the cables. He's going to cut the cables. And then we're all in blackness, and we're all
I'll tell you one thing.
Have gone and where the internet's gone and all the rest of it,
But just coming back to what Bill had talked about earlier, I think if that does happen and the cables do get cut, I think suddenly people will be out talking again to each other. Because what else is there to do? You'll be forced to talk to people face to face again. So I don't know. I really do believe that eventually we will win. The question is, what are we going to have to go through to get to that victory and to get our freedoms back? And I think it will be atrocious. I think this decade is going to be terrible.
And what will be left, Mr. J? That's the thing.
That's true.
After everything that's been going on and everything that's ongoing,
what
will we have won? nothing but a battle to try and recover some semblance of a reasonable lifestyle, I would have thought.
Although, I mean, it's not unreasonable to suggest that they have, they have been suppressing a lot of patented technology that could ultimately lead to a kind of a new revolution industrially. I mean, it's
but that's exactly it, isn't it? I mean, they don't need the useless eaters anymore. I mean, let's look at this. It's hard not
some of us
to at least consider that this is a depopulation agenda, the running amok, and that it's not like that whole vax thing. I don't think that that was, if you like, a failure for them. I think they got out of it exactly what they wanted, which was basically to know that they could troll people. As Bill put it earlier in the first half, they got people basically to sign a pact with the globalists, big pharma, whatever, but basically being told, be a pact against their own use of their instinct and common sense. And now they've moved on. This is a new. It's not that failed, and they did have to suppress some of the stuff that was coming out. Yeah, but they are moving on. And one of the things that they've done is they've deliberately broken the supply chains, the production lines, and Bill was on the show a few weeks ago talking about inflation. We touched on it earlier today as well. It was 2.1 when Biden took office. Today it's confirmed at 7.9. Bill, we were kind of scratching our heads over that show that we did about inflation was, will more people die because of that than died because of this supposed COVID-19 or whatever? I mean, I don't know. And then you've got this Ukraine thing. God knows what the truth is there, but.
And that's the thing as well, Ollie, when you talk about inflation, and that show that we did, it didn't get very many views, did it?
No.
Because it's not a subject that's sexy to people.
Yeah.
If you've got my old boss Nigel Farage sat there with a pint moaning about ships coming into Dover and complaining about bloody Johnny foreigners,
and yet never mentioning the reason why, the UN Migration Compact.
yeah, and you'll get thousands and thousands of views of that because it's jolly. There he is with his pint, even though he doesn't drink beer. He drinks wine.
Yeah,
and
people want porn, don't they?
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's porn, and people will watch that in their tens of thousands, and he'll make money. Whereas when you've got something that's a very serious issue. I don't recall ever having been on any form of media discussing inflation for as long as we did on that show. And the reality is, as Ollie just touched on, it will kill more people than COVID ever dreamt of killing. And it's going to be the thing that could well bring this whole thing to a head economically and every other sense, because people are going to be in dire straits. Mm-hmm. And nobody watched and nobody shared it. And it's going to be too late by the time people wake up. And that's why I get so angry about it. But all right, who are they to say I'm no big deal? Why would they share me around? But why doesn't someone who's in a position actually speak about the things that matter rather than raking in their money and doing this silly porn, as you quite rightly describe it? Actually talk about something that matters and the public consciousness needs to be raised on.
Mm-hmm. I'd also just chime in and say that I would imagine that whatever they state as the actual or as the inflation rate, I'd imagine it's at least double.
Yeah. And I think inflation has been enormous for years, and they've been lying about it.
Yeah.
Inflation rates are taken from a hand-selected basket of goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
So it might well be 7% from that basket, but actually, when you go and do your shop, like you quite rightly say, it'll be close to 20 or 25.
The way they've avoided, this kind of chronic inflationary situation is because everybody globally has been printing in tandem. I mean, the Chinese, the Russians, everybody. The Chinese have built city upon city that's standing empty now because they didn't know what else to spend their bloody money on. I mean, at the end of the day, they had to keep printing in tandem with the Americans and the Europeans, in order to stop this massive disparity between values of currency. So there has been a kind of push globally to print ad infinitum. But now we've reached a point where they just cannot keep the whole thing going. It's just become too absurd, and you know, they've created such a monumental debt mountain. You know, they're not even in a position to be able to pay the interest on the debt products that they have. You know, so you know, and now we've got raging inflation. You know, this is just the absolute final death knell. And so that's another thing that ties into the reason why we're being sort of sold World War III now, hook, line, and sinker across the mainstream media. You know, they're literally they've run out of options. They don't know what else to do now. They tried COVID as an excuse to bring in, you know, some sort of financial reset. That's sort of failed. That's sort of fallen on its feet and didn't work because not enough people got vaxxed. And
you say that, Piers. I disagree with you. I think that we just haven't seen it play through yet. The inflation is here now, and it will be 1 or 2 or 2 or 3 quarters from now when we're really going to be seeing the effect of that.
They're not going to be able to keep this thing going any longer. Not now we're in a war footing with Russia and all the rest of it. I mean, it's
apparently
we are in the end game. I mean, this has got to be months, weeks away from something very, very significant happening. I mean, I just cannot see how they can keep this facade going. They've kept the global economy going through false pretenses for years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing should have crashed off the 2008. It should have been allowed to crash and burn, because it was only going to be kicking the can down the road was only going to make the next crash far, 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 far worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they bailed all the banks out. You know, they gave them all the public money. You know, the banks went to the, you know,
it was wealth transferal. What they did was wealth transferal.
They had to do it. Because, you know, that would, you know, in the olden days,
they didn't have to do it, but they did it, and they stole from Mama Papa, who now has to compete with Amazon or whatever. Who's done very well.
There are caveats in your contracts with the banks that you hold your current accounts with that say. I mean, look at what happened in Cyprus. Cyprus is a primary example of what goes on when things really do crash, you know, and what the Cypriot government did was tell all the oligarchs, the Russian oligarchs that had their money in Cyprus, you know, prior to the crash, was get your money out of here now.
That's right.
We're going to rob everybody's personal
That's right.
And I know a guy whose father used to be the Greek ambassador in London. And he had a large proportion of his retirement fund in a Cypriot bank, and he started to get wind of the fact that things were going awry. And he approached his bank, and they pulled a guy out of retirement that he dealt with before at the bank to tell him that his money was safe, and then they robbed him blind.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, they you know, the only people that got their money out of Cyprus before they basically pilfered people's personal wealth.
Yeah,
was the Russian oligarchs.
And then the EU finance chief says, and the EU finance chief says that was a template. Yeah. Basically, that levy on your personal bank account, it wasn't just like, you know, a levy on a huge energy company or something. It was on ordinary people and their bank accounts, and that was, he said, is a template. And as I recall at the time, because this is back in the Obama years, I think Obama in the States, similar was said.
Do you guys know of Edward Dowd?
No.
He's a former BlackRock CEO.
Oh yeah.
I would recommend checking him out. He's been talking a lot about how he thinks the charade is about to collapse, or the mask is about to fall off, because if you've been watching the stocks of like Moderna and Pfizer, they've been tanking. Yeah. And basically, you know, he says a lot of people basically believe that the Wall Street is one kind of giant cabal, and he said they're not. There are very few people maybe at the top who are in the know, and the rest are they're playing the game. And more and more of these people are starting to see what's happening, and they're starting to dump Moderna and Pfizer because they realize that it's quite clear they've done a lot of fraud.
Apparently Pfizer have filed for a Section 25 article, which is I don't know whether I've said that right or not, but apparently what they've done is they've asked to be delisted from the global stock exchange. I don't know whether that's actually going to come to anything, but I don't think if you went to Reuters now, see that Pfizer was going to be delisted. But apparently, because they've been to court trying to suppress the evidence of vaccine injury and all the rest of it, for basically 3/4 of a century. Something they did actually mention on GB News, funnily enough. That was Mark Stein. The fact that they've been going out of their way to suppress the evidence of massive vaccine injury and all the rest of it, that's going to come out at some point. And now they're trying to delist, apparently, because their stock is actually going to go, even with Viagra, it's going to go through. It's going to plummet.
Wow.
They won't be able to
trouble.
sustain their erection.
Yeah, but and so I think that is going to be another huge wake up call for a lot of normies, if you will.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
There's a story along these lines somewhere. I saw it on that Daily Mail homepage, but it's buried. And they've got all these huge stories, these big, lots of pictures, big pictures of Ukraine, say, and then stories like that, which have affected every single person on the face of the planet, are buried. Absolutely, So they play these tricks. They play. Yeah, we're coming up to the end of the show, and literally the end of the. Well, one thing to answer your question, Piers, also is I was thinking I would do some sort of snappy, short, highly produced type nuggets of what's going on, and maybe even occasionally have a quick 2-minute spar with, I don't know, one of you lot, for example. Hopefully, I certainly hope so. But yeah, thought I'd do that. The thing is that
2 hours is a lot of airtime to fill. It's great when you get.
It's not difficult to fill it. It's a lot of airtime to listen to anybody that is remotely off script, that doesn't, you hear one or two lines and it's like, no, whoa, need to go back to, I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. People only have a very limited attention span. Obviously, there are people that are prepared to sit here and listen to what we're talking about. But actually, all credit to your guests. They are well informed and intelligent guys. Which is
they're
great.
awesome.
Nice.
I tell you, everybody that's been on the show, awesome. I tell you.
Yeah.
Apart from that guy that said that he thought that the Earth was flat, that was a bit crap. I didn't know what to say. I mean, what
Ollie, I just want to say, you're coming to the end of these run of these particular kind of shows, but having absolutely tilted at the mainstream media for their crass porn-style coverage of the issues, I think it's fair to say to you, congratulations and well done, well played indeed, for having gone into such depth on the issues as you have done over such a prolonged period of time, and to have braved all of the brickbats and all of the crap that gets thrown, and to actually be genuine and putting across what you genuinely believe and allowing people to speak on your show. So I think from that perspective, mate, I just want to say well done for everything you've done, and congratulations, and massive respect on that. And let's hope that you come back in a different format and do other stuff. But what you've done has been marvellous, mate. So massive respect for that.
God bless you, Bill. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll totally second that. Ollie, you are a legend. You've always been on the sort of. It's funny because I've known Ollie for decades, and I've seen his journey through media, from when he worked at Bloomberg in the city. Even when he was at Bloomberg, he was a kind of outsider. He had this very conservative Jewish American editor, and he had this show on Bloomberg TV, and everybody used to tune in who worked for Bloomberg because Ollie was so off left field. He used to wear wolf's heads and sort of interview people like Screaming Lord Such and
I got ticked off for that because he was talking about how he was talking about fiat. Lord Such was talking about fiat currency, and now it's a lot of old crap. And I got seriously ticked off from Bloomberg for interviewing Screaming Lord Such. Very bright bloke he was.
Push the boundaries. I mean, just looking at your career, you've never compromised, and I admire you for that because you could have you got offered a job off the back of Bloomberg at MTV, and your style of journalism ruffled tail feathers there as well.
Yeah, they didn't like that. No, they didn't like they didn't like something. I called out George Michael for is he going to pull in the crowds? Or pull down his trousers or something in just after the cop thing.
Toilet trading in Los Angeles, and you ran an article about it, and then the editor let you run it, and then George Michael's people got in touch with MTV and said, "How dare you disparage George on MTV?" And you were the fall guy, but I
was the editor. I ran it, but they didn't like it. Still, no, they didn't like that. So that was the end of that. Yeah.
Despite you've had some high profile roles in your time in the media, and but you've always done it by your own.
Hold on. Look, Piers, God bless you, mate. Look, that's it. Revolution Radio will continue, and sometime I'll be back on Revolution Radio. God knows when. And go to dailychaos.news and register there and get the newsletter and stay in touch. Because it's impossible to stay in touch on places like Facebook now because they're kicking us all off. Daily Chaos, I'm Olly Connelly, Bill Etheridge, Piers, Garnham, Mr. J, God bless you, Revolution, Wake Up UK, blah, blah, blah. Here's to us, and burger, plutocracy.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
Yeah. God bless you.
Join me at Revolution